it like it is, bringing the community together and working for justice. Attorney Travis McConnell talks politics, trending news, and how you can make a difference. You're listening to We Trust Travis. Hi, everyone. I'm Serena Fazan, a journalist, host, and producer. Welcome to this episode of We Trust Travis. Travis McConnell is a personal injury attorney with a huge passion for the community. So let's get started with this show. Hi, Travis. Travis is joining us from Warsaw, Indiana. Travis, nice to see you.
Nice to see you again today, Serena.
And Travis, just so the folks know out there, you practice law in Indiana as well as the state of Florida.
Yep, we are in our two areas. I'm here in Warsaw, Indiana, where I've got an office, and I've also got one in St. Petersburg, Florida, where you're at today.
That's right. I'm in the studios in St. Petersburg, Florida, and you have a very special guest with you today, Courtney Jenkins. Hi, Courtney.
Hi.
Can you please introduce yourself?
Program here local. Yeah. We're just talking all over each other.
We're just talking all over, because you know what? We're talking all over each other because we are so excited about the show, because Courtney has such a huge passion to help people. So I'm not going to interrupt you anymore, Courtney. Please share who you are and what you started.
So my name is Courtney Jenkins, and I work for the Kosciusko County Sheriff's Office, and I coordinate our jail chemical addiction program. We commonly call it JCAP, and it is a 4-month treatment program that is housed within the county jail. And they do recovery classes as well as life skills classes. So that's what I do.
So let us ask you, why is this program so personal to you? If you could share the personal journey.
Yeah. So my son is 24, and his high school years were pretty rough. And then after he graduated from high school in 2015, he became addicted to heroin and meth. And so just trying to wrap our heads around where he was and where we were, and all of the struggles that that come with watching your son slowly kill himself was heartbreaking and overwhelming, and we didn't know how to handle it, and we didn't know where to go for help. And so honestly, the first couple of years, I kind of just spent them in bed. I was really depressed. I have 3 younger daughters who definitely suffered because of the stress that it was putting on our family and on me and my husband. And it just was really difficult. And so after, I think it was about 2 years, I decided that something had to change. And my son had been in and out of jail a couple of times. And I just had this really strong opinion that each time he came out, things were worse. He knew different people. He had a stronger criminal thinking mentality that was super unhealthy, and was causing him to get in even more trouble. And so I just felt like we have to change something. So I started looking, and also at the same time, I guess we sent our son to rehab in Florida. And when he came back, he made fun of the recovery program that he had been part of there, specifically the AA portion of it. And that frustrated me because he grew up going to church. He grew up knowing what I thought, was who he was and where he came from and why he was here. And he didn't, at least not at that time. And so it hurt me to hear him kind of make fun of his higher power and that aspect of the AA program. But it also made me think, okay, if he isn't going to follow that program, and if that program isn't going to help him, what will? What else is there? And so I started researching. A friend told me about the Smart Recovery program, and I took an online course. It was a 40-hour simple little course to become a facilitator. And I started going into the jail in 2017 and doing smart recovery classes with the female population. And I did that a couple times a week for about a year and a half. And during that time, our county received a grant from the state attorney general's office to start a JCAP program. The program was originally started in Dearborn County, Indiana. And so the Office of the Attorney General offered specific grant money to any county who was willing to start the program. So our county accepted that offer, and they kind of slowly began to put things in place. But I have been a stay-at-home mom at that time for 22 years, I think. And it wasn't moving fast enough for me. And I just kept hounding them, like, what can I do to help? Where are we at with this? I can make calls. I just was this little like annoying, and I know I was super annoying. Sometimes you just have to. And eventually they gave me the stack of Dearborn County paperwork, and they said, here, just convert it to Kosciusko County. So in doing that, I really learned the ins and outs of the program. I put together an outline of what I felt like they needed to be doing right away. They needed to get together a committee. They needed to have an application process. There was just a lot of different moving parts. At the same time that was happening, our county was going through an election year, and the sitting sheriff had not won the primary, and so we knew we were going to have a new sheriff, and we knew who it was going to be because he was running at that point unopposed. And so I saw him at a community meeting that I had helped to organize, and I went up to Kyle Dukes and I introduced myself, and I said, we have an opportunity to really run this great program. And I need to talk to you about it because you need to do this. And so at the same time, the administration and the jail commander at the time, they were putting the program together, and they started 6 girls in the program in October of 2018. And then Sheriff Dukes came into office in January of 2019. He called me into his office on January 3rd and asked me to run the program. And so I explained to him and the jail commander exactly what I thought this program could be. And I had pretty high hopes. At that point, our son had been in several...
Courtney, before you go any further, because I have so many questions for you, before you go any further, your story is amazing. And I would say that you're not annoying at all. It's thank goodness there are mothers and people like you in this world, so we make so many changes. But before you go more into the program, I just wanted to interrupt for 1 second because I wanted to ask about Travis. Hearing Courtney and explain how this whole program started, is this why it was so important for you to have her on your show? And how did the two of you meet?
I know when we were talking, like planning for the show, is we talked about, let's potentially talk about the opioid epidemic and things that are going on because it's been a big issue. I just immediately thought of Courtney. As soon as you say opioid, I'm like, oh, we need to talk to Courtney because she's actively working and doing a great job at making a difference here in our community. Like the JCAP program has been amazing in what it's done to change things here in our county. And it's one of those things that I feel like it should be expanded or, should be everywhere. It's really done a great job to go from, Courtney kind of talked about how you become criminalized going into the system, and this takes that and breaks it and gets you hooked up. And like she works with community partners that come in and meet people and do job interviews and trainings and all those sorts of things, as well as mentorship to really help people come out and have the skills that they need to succeed, as opposed to skills that they learn from their, roommates or cellmates.
And I think going back to also, Courtney, with what you said, when you met with the sheriff, who was, clearly unopposed, and instead of letting someone else run the program, so to go back to what you were sharing, you decided to be proactive and step in yourself. So if you could continue with your story.
Yeah. So I at that point, I had been a stay-at-home mom for all of our married life. And so county government is weird in that their budgets were already done. And so I just volunteered for the first year. And our goal that first year was to build the program into exactly what we wanted it to be as quickly as we could, but doing everything in exactly the right way. We didn't want to make little mistakes that were going to cause us to have to backtrack or cause somebody more heartache in their recovery journey. And so even though we kind of walked lightly, we are very, very blessed in our community to have amazing support from so many organizations. And so actually one of the best things that we did that first month in January, we invited every community organization that would even remotely touch someone who had struggled with substance abuse disorder. And we invited them all to the sheriff's office. We sat down in the multi-purpose room around a big table, and we asked every organization to explain what they did and how they could help JCAP as well as help other organizations that were around the table. That meeting has proved over and over again to be the most essential part to our beginnings.
No, that's wonderful. And when you talked about the beginning, you said you initially went into the female population. Were you limited to only going into the female population?
So I kind of was, because my son at the time was in general population, and I wasn't super welcomed necessarily when I first started going in. It was just a really different thing for the jail staff and the administration to have someone going in and trying to teach a class. And so I started small. I just started with the females. I actually started with 1 day a week. And after just a couple months, I said, hey, would you mind if I came in on Thursdays too? And they were like, we don't care. And so it worked out. I mean, it was literally like, that was my answer.
Get your foot in the door and then just keep going.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's kind of what I did. And they were gracious after a little while, and they welcomed me. And so I did just specifically meet with the females initially.
Well, good for you, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
good
for you.
The behavior, even while they're in jail.
It does. The culture in our jail has shifted drastically. Do you care if I share a little story about just the culture shift in the jail? Sure. So last year, in the spring, I had 2 gentlemen who applied to the JCAP program, and they both wrote me very, very nice letters that kind of caught me off guard, because I do get a lot of letters for people requesting that they be admitted into the program. And but these 2 really caught my attention. And so I looked up the 2 gentlemen to see what their situation was, if they would even be a candidate for the program. And as I looked at them, I noticed that they were in our segregation block, meaning they had been in trouble. And so then I went to look at their incident reports, and the one gentleman had like 27 incidents in a 6-month period, and the other one wasn't very far behind. And so I was like, you gotta be kidding. Like, you're writing this nice letter and yet you can't behave. And so I went to talk to them, because my opinion has always been, I haven't been able to help my son. He's still in active addiction. But maybe I can help somebody else's. And maybe I pray for the person who is able to connect with my son in a way and say just that right thing that he needs to hear, so that he knows his worth and he knows that he can do this. So I went into F block. They happened to be in the same cell together, and I woke them up and I just started asking them questions. And I was like, look, you wrote these nice letters, but here you are, and you got all these incident reports, and how old are you guys? Why are you behaving like this? And they were both in their early 30s. And I was shocked, because I was like, I said, it's time for you to grow up. I said, you guys are kind of part of the cool kids club here in the jail. And you're setting a horrible example for these young kids.
Oh my gosh, that gave me goosebumps, though, what you said when you said that, because I was, of course, going to circle back to your son and ask how your son was doing. And when you said that your son is still struggling with addiction, and you hope and pray that someone will enter his life, right? And give him those words that he needs, or the support that he needs, which of course you're constantly trying to do. But that says a lot about you, Courtney, that's the effect that you hope to have on someone like these 2 gentlemen that you're sharing the story about.
Yeah. Well, and it's easy to see when you work in the jail, the inmates, they are really good people, and they're desperate for somebody to tell them that they have worth. And so when these two gentlemen told me that both of them had just had babies born, and I asked them about their fathers, which were really sad stories, and neither one of them had had a father in their life. And I said, "So is this what you want for your children?" Because I hear that story over and over again in the jail. And I said, it's time for you guys to grow up. And if you can make it for the next 4 months, which is how long the JCAP program lasts, if you can make it through the next 4 months without any incidents, I will consider you for the program. And I can't make any promises because we do have a whole committee that decides those things. But the one gentleman made it 5 months, and the other one is still absolutely no incidents in the jail.
Wow.
The gentleman that made it 5 months was released a few months ago, and he actually called me this weekend, and he said, "I just want you to know that I have been out for 2 months. I've been working 2 jobs. Since the day I got out, I've had 2 jobs. And I see my daughter almost every single day. And I just was able to buy her a crib and diapers. And I did it because you told me that I needed to, and because you told me I could." And just, I think it shows how desperate they are to change their lives. They really want something different than what they have. But addiction is a tricky thing. It's really hard, and it doesn't just go away because you've been in jail for 6 months or a year. There's so much more involved with recovery, and it's so much more than learning to not use drugs. You have to change every single thing about your life. You have to change your people. You have to change every place you go, the way that you think, the activities that you do. You have to find new hobbies. And for the majority of people who struggle with addiction, they have struggled since their early teens. And so they don't even have adult hobbies. They don't know what they like to do. Like, I have said to girls before, like, before addiction, what did you like to do? Like, what did you do? And the one girl looked at me and she literally said, "I don't know, I played with Barbies." And I was
Yeah,
like,
isn't that something?
"Oh my gosh." Yeah.
So Travis, so speaking of that, you have said, because as you and I were talking about even before the show started, that you feel so passionate as an attorney that there needs to be some type of intervention even prior to them getting into the system. Talk about that a little bit.
I think ideally it would be great to be able to help people before they get into jail. It's a lot trickier, and there's more moving parts, obviously. But if we could be more proactive, there's the old adage of ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Sorry about that. Took me a minute to think of the words, but yeah, I mean, with the program's fantastic and it's making a huge difference. And there's so many other stories I'm sure that Courtney could share. But if we could help people before they even get into jail, when they first start down that road, if there's some way to intervene sooner, then that would be ideal, I think. I think there's a certain component of JCAP that makes it unique and helps with its success rate, which I'm sure Courtney could talk about. We've talked about before, as far as the fact that you are in jail, that adds a different dynamic. And there's a certain aspect, there's the old adage, you're not ready to get better until you hit rock bottom. And being in jail definitely feels like a bottom sometimes for a lot of people. But I think there is a way that we can look at helping people sooner. We need to make sure and not waste resources if things aren't working. But I don't think that means that we give up on people either, that we need to try and find that solution before they've already been partially criminalized, like Courtney was talking about, where they've gone through the system. They've gone through, like, I think as an attorney of like programs for misdemeanor offenses for marijuana and small things like that, where people go through. And for most people, those programs are pretty meaningless. There's some courts that have even stopped sending people because they realize they don't make a difference. So if we could somehow replace those with something else as opposed to just give up and not require anything, I think that would be something that would really help to focus on rehabilitation for people and getting people back as productive members of society. I mean, not only is it's the right thing to do, in my opinion, just helping people, but it also, if you want to look at it from an economic point of view, because that's what some people like to speak that language, every person that we help then becomes a productive member of society. Not only are they're not costing us money in the criminal justice system, which the cost is going up year after year, but now they're a productive member of society who's generating an economic output in a country who's got a huge employment issue right now. We could use every employee that we have available to us.
No, absolutely. So Travis, how can we start to make that happen? I know it's a lot easier, said than done. I mean, Courtney is proof of taking action and making a difference, but how can we make what you're talking about happen?
I think if we could take something like JCAP and do it where you don't have to be in jail, but potentially work release or home detention, and have a center where people go in for their classes on that basis, that they have all the same program, but you're not in the jail. It's going to be harder for people because there's going to be that chance to slip up at home. They're going to be at home. They're not going to be having that supervision at all the time. There'd be drug screens, things like that, and real strict oversight. But I think that's something where you could do that on offenses, because one of the good and bad things about JCAP is you have to be in jail for 4 months to qualify, because it's a 4 month long program. Most people for their first offense aren't going to be sitting in jail for 4 months. So if we could help people earlier with some sort of a JCAP program while you're on probation or community corrections or something like that, I think that's what the key would be in figuring out the differences and the issues with the oversight and people being at home and less supervision will be tricky, but it's something that I think we need to work to make happen.
So Courtney, as you hear Travis talk about this, do you see that in the future of JCAP? Some adjustments?
I wish, and I think our county is on the right track. Um, in January, we got a new director out at our work release center, and she was part of our JCAT program kind of from the beginning. She was an HR director, and she helped with our job readiness classes, and she just became very invested in the program. She hired several of our graduates, many of our graduates actually, and she helped to kind of mentor them as they worked for her as well. So stepping into her role as the work release director, Heather has done an outstanding job of, one, looking at individuals on a case by case basis and saying, okay, what do you need for your success? Do we need to get you into classes and counseling services? Do you need to go to church every Sunday? Do you need to attend recovery meetings? Do you need to, she's really working to make it more of an opportunity for them to practice living instead of just going to work and then back to the work release center after they're done. They are responsible to get a bank account. They are responsible to get all of their fines and fees paid before they leave the work release center. So they're set up on a budget, and they contribute to the decisions that are being made in that budget, but there's somebody there to help guide them and kind of walk them through that. They see their kids regularly now, which is not something that happened at our work release center before. And we have a counselor that's out there one day a week, and they can sign up to see him if they've got struggles, if they're dealing with issues with their families. It is such a taxing situation to be in jail or to be in work release and leave your family behind. Moms are trying to raise the kids and
Absolutely.
financially support them. And so Heather just really recognizes that they need help, and there needs to be some concessions made so that they can meet their family obligations as well, and try to rebuild those relationships while they're meeting the obligations, because there's a lot of anger from kids or from spouses or from moms and dads or sisters and brothers who have had to deal with the fallout of their choices.
Absolutely, because it does not just affect one person. It affects everybody. It affects the entire unit surrounding that person, family, friends. It does. It affects everybody. So what you've done there is amazing. What would your message be to other people as they watch this show throughout the country to help out their community?
I would say get involved, find out where you fit, because there are so many needs. I have people call me weekly, just saying, I just heard about the program. My niece has struggled. How can I help? Can I teach a class? And I said, well, you could tell me what your skills are. Tell me what kind of class you would be interested in teaching. But we have mentor opportunities. So we have a mentor program, and we bring them in, they get to meet our participants, and then they follow them as they transition back to the community, and they become a friend for them. There's somebody that they can call when they're struggling, when they're having a bad day, when they're having a good day, and they've got all this success that they want to share with someone, but their maybe family system or their old friends are not the people that they can reach out to anymore, or who maybe they just don't feel like would care. And so we really work to do that. So we've got mentor opportunities. We have, obviously, donations are a huge part of our program. We are grant and donation funded, and the donations pick up the majority of our cost. And so that's always a huge help. But we have people from the community, not just organizations, that come in and teach classes. I have a lady right now who's teaching a goal setting class, and she retired, and she called me and she said, I have this idea. And it was just a fantastic idea. And the girls are loving the class. And so find an organization that interests you, learn about what they do, and then find exactly where you can help. Don't leave it up to somebody to say, okay, we need you here, because it might not be a good fit for you. And then if it's a bad experience or not a great experience, you're not going to do it. And so find what works. I really believe that. And I think also when you really search out those opportunities and you do it with the intentions of serving your community or serving others, I think doors are opened and a path is made clear. I mean, that's how it was for me. Up until January 3rd, when I walked into Sheriff Duke's office, I did not ever see myself doing this. It was not something my husband and I had discussed. I came home from the meeting and my husband was like, okay, well, what was that about? And I was like, well, I think I work now. And I literally was like, I don't know.
For free.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, and absolutely, when you're talking about finding, something that you're passionate about, it appears that JCAP does have a great system in place. So for people to just learn more about JCAP, where would you suggest they go? To Facebook, to your website? Where's the best place to go?
So if they go to the Kosciusko County Sheriff's Office Facebook page, we have pinned to the top of their page a series of videos about the program, and it really showcases what the program is about, the family feel that we have with not just our participants, but with our instructors as well. We are a close group, and it is just a very unique experience to get to walk into kind of our little world in the jail. And so I would really recommend that people watch those videos.
Okay, absolutely. And Travis, what would your final message be?
I mean, kind of to echo Courtney, like get involved in your community, whether it's this or something else. I think that's the big thing, is there's so much work to be done. And I think a lot of us tend to want to just keep to ourselves, keep to our bubbles, and realize there's such a big push for individual liberty, individual rights, and more about individuals and our own taking care of ourselves and our families. But like, we're all in this together, is a saying that's happened because of the pandemic, right? But I mean, it's been true even before. Like, this is a community, and it's only going to be as good as we make it. And that takes all of us working together. So get involved in your community, find a thing that you enjoy, and try and get plugged in. And if you hit a little bit of a wall, be persistent, like Courtney.
Yeah. Like Courtney.
Don't be afraid to go. Don't be afraid to go ask, but don't be afraid to ask again and again.
Thank you so much, Courtney, for sharing your journey, your passion. We need more people like you in this community. We, of course, wish the very, very best for your son, and we're all pulling for him. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We so appreciate it. Of course, Travis, thank you. And thank you, everyone, so much for joining us for this episode of We Trust Travis. Please share and like this video and share it so we can continue this message of helping the community. Thanks so much for joining us. To learn more about Travis McConnell, head to travismclaw.com. Thank you for listening to We Trust Travis.